Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
From Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, Gallery, Bar, Book, and Games. It's a JAKIB Media Eagles pregame show with Marc Farzetta, Derek Gunn, and Eagles Hall of Famer Mr. Seth Joyner. So much to get into today with today's matchup as the Eagles look to improve to 11-1 on the season as they take on the 7-4 Tennessee Titans. A lot to get into when it comes to A.J. Brown taking on his former team. We got Jordan Davis's return. How are the Eagles going to at least attempt to stop Derrick Henry? But let's start it off on the injury front, as it does look like our man Jordan Davis will be in the middle of that line of scrimmage with a lot of veterans that have been added to the fray by Howie Roseman. Gunnar, I'll start with you. What are the early reports on Jordan Davis, and what can we expect from him today?
Well, I checked with a few people earlier today, and they said he's ready to go. Now, he had mentioned in the latter part of last week that he's dropped 20 pounds from his frame. I'm looking forward to seeing a skinny Jordan Davis, if we can call 320 skinny instead of 340.
Wait a minute. He dropped 20
He dropped
pounds
20
in
pounds.
3 weeks?
Yes, dropped 20 pounds.
I guarantee you, if you look behind him, you'll find it.
Oh my goodness! But that's, I was told this morning. I said he's ready to go. I said, what does that mean? He is ready to go.
Wow.
That means he's back in shape, no limitations whatsoever. Now, how many plays he's going to play this game? He's considering he's missed the last 4. That remains to be seen what kind of game shape he's in.
Well, I mean, listen, he's been averaging like 20 to 26, 27 plays. I wouldn't expect for him to play any more than that. Probably 15, 20 max. They got enough depth at that position now that he doesn't have to play a whole lot.
Okay, one of the problems or one of the concerns people had with Jordan Davis coming out of the draft was his weight, and not in the decreasing worry. It was more in the increasing worry. So, Gunnar, you're telling me that right now we're at a point where he's 20 pounds lighter than what he was before he went on the
Before you even answer that, man, I don't know what regiment he was on. But I'm going over to the NovaCare when I leave here today. I'm getting on that program.
Seth, modern technology has changed from when you played.
20 pounds in
Yes.
3 weeks?
Yes.
4 weeks?
Yes, 4 weeks. Well, a little bit more than 4 weeks.
Man, let me
Think
tell
about
you.
it.
I see when y'all see me next week, I ain't even gonna look the same.
Wait.
like a track star.
Will we be looking at bigger Seth?
No.
Or smaller Seth?
No, I'm coming down, way down. Are you kidding me? If he can come down 20 pounds in 4 weeks, I can lose 10 to 15 in 2 weeks.
No, that's the motivation we all need right after Thanksgiving, right? And going into the rest of the holidays, of course. All right, let's look at this now. So Jordan Davis going to be back there, albeit a lighter version of Jordan Davis. But he's going to be there with Ndamukong Suh. He's going to be there with Linval Joseph. He's going to be there with Fletcher Cox, and then guys on the outside like Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick, hopefully being aggressive in this game, being allowed to be aggressive in this game, a buzzword that seems to come up each and every week. But I'll ask you this, Seth. How good can this defensive line be against a guy like Derrick Henry?
The depth that they have now is, especially on the interior when they need to play 5-man, is just unheard of. I mean, you're talking about Ndamukong Suh, who you really only need about 15 plays out of. Now that Jordan Davis is back, Linval Joseph, he'll only have to play about 15 to 20 plays a game. And then you got, your old stalwarts, Fletcher Cox, who's now probably rejuvenated and motivated, with the addition of the other guys, and Javon Hargrave, who's off to, a pretty decent year to begin with. So the depth is just unbelievable. We got to get the pressure off the ends with the defensive ends, and if we can get pushed there, and those guys on the end can get around the corner, I think we got something. And believe me, I know everybody's concerned about Derrick Henry, but I'm going to throw some stats at you guys today that's going to blow your mind to get you to understand that this team is not a run-first team anymore.
Wow. Oh, well, I will say this. Ryan Tannehill is not a great quarterback. He's not somebody that I'm overly concerned with if he's the quarterback that you're facing. But the term pick you apart does come to mind if you don't force him into making mistakes. You're looking at a guy over his last 8 games, I believe. He's only thrown 1 interception. He only has 4 on the season in total. He's a guy that doesn't really make that mistake unless you make him make that mistake. And I know it comes up each and every week, and we tease it in the open. That word aggression or being aggressive comes up when talking about Jonathan Gannon. So when you look at this defensive line, will this be a week, Gunner, where you look at this defense and say, they're just going to let the defensive line eat. They're not going to send T.J. Edwards. They're not going to send even Reed Blankenship, who we'll talk about a little bit more coming up, as he's going to get the start today at safety for the Eagles, filling in for Charles Gardner-Johnson. So when you look at this defensive line, will they just be the ones concerned with getting the pressure, or do you see Jonathan Gannon manipulating his linebackers and his secondary to try to force Ryan Tannehill into making mistakes?
I've said it since day one of the season, and I'm going to say it again. The Eagles' 4-man front by itself is not good enough to get home consistently. And they haven't proved me wrong up to this point. They're more effective when they go to the 5-man front when they send the extra attacker. The problem is they don't like to blitz a whole lot. Now, in terms of making Ryan Tannehill make mistakes, Ryan Tannehill is a very efficient quarterback, not an elite quarterback. I don't even use the word great when I talk about a Ryan Tannehill. But he's been around the block for more than a decade. He's a smart quarterback, and there's a reason why he doesn't turn the ball over much. I think the biggest reason why Ryan Tannehill has been a more efficient passer this year, maybe more so than recent years, is because of the emergence of his young wide receiver, Treylon Burks. You know, he's a rookie. He was taking his time to really get acclimated to the NFL game. But over the last 2 games, Treylon Burks has 11 catches for 185 yards. So now he has another viable weapon. And when Seth said what he said a moment ago, I'm going to show you why this Tennessee team is not just a running team. That perked my interest. So I can't wait to hear his stats. But, you know, Ryan Tannehill, you have to make him make mistakes. He's not a great running quarterback. You can get to him. The frustrating thing is, will the Eagles deploy enough people to get to him and get him off his mark?
Fair enough. Now, Seth, do any of your numbers have to do with the fact that over the last 2 weeks, Derrick Henry, in a run game at least, has been somewhat contained?
No, 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
I mean,
now.
it goes back 3 weeks. I mean, these numbers are just mind-blowing. You know, Derrick Henry is averaging 21 carries a game for a paltry 59 yards.
Yep. Wow.
He's had 1 rushing touchdown over the last 3 weeks. Conversely, Ryan Tannehill is averaging right around 33 passes a game over the last 3 weeks. You know, precisely 293 yards per game, and he's thrown 4 touchdown passes. Now, that doesn't sound like the Tennessee Titans that we know that's just going to pound you into submission. But what you're starting to get is teams are starting to load the box with 6, 7, 8 guys. And when that's the case and you're holding Derrick Henry, last week he was held at 2.8 yards per carry. When you're holding him to that kind of number, you have no other choice but to play the cat and mouse game. The cat and mouse game is, okay, you got Robert Woods on one side, you got Treylon Burks on the other side, and if you're going to load the box, then Ryan Tannehill is going to have to throw the football. Now, what is Jonathan Gannon's game plan today? Are you going to load the box and try to stop Derrick Henry first, or are you going to do it the other way around? You're just going to play your 2 high, and every time they see 2 high safeties, I can promise you they're going to check and they're going to run the football.
All right. So how would you approach it today then? If you're standing next to Jonathan Gannon on that sideline, how are you attacking this offense?
I have to discourage them from trying to run the ball first. You know, I think that, you know, we talked about it many times. The more apt they are, you know, to be able to run the ball, I think the more effective now that cat and mouse game, you know, it gets a little dicey because they can go play action pass off of those runs. And now, you know, your linebackers and your safeties aren't quite sure. But if I can take away Derrick Henry early and force their hand, especially if the offense, if we can play complementary football, if the offense can get off to a great start, and I got another crazy stat for you on that side of the ball too, but if the offense can get off to a great start and get a lead, you almost force their hand to have to throw the ball. And I would much rather have Ryan Tannehill throw the ball 30 to 40 times today than to have Derrick Henry run that bad boy 35 to 40 times today.
You know, to play off something Seth just said a moment ago is about Tannehill passing the ball for 293 yards on average over the last 3 games. That's a significant improvement for a team that was averaging under 176-yard passing the previous games as well. So basically, Tennessee has now become forced to be a more balanced offense out of necessity. As Seth talked about, Derrick Henry averaging 59 yards a game the last 3 games because, guys, teams are bringing people down in the box and loading the box and daring to throw them against them. My question to both of you, will Jonathan Gannon load the box?
Listen, I mean, he to me.
Will Jonathan Gannon load the box?
You want me to go first, Seth? No. I'm just gonna. I mean, really, yeah. When I look at this particular game, this is what we got into last week a little bit when we talked about why did the Eagles go out and get Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph, and what game, if any, above all the rest, were circled on the calendar. I thought it was the Packers game over this one because this game with this defensive line allows Jonathan Gannon to do that thing that he loves to do, which is not be aggressive. It's to say to his front four, go get it, fellas. Go win those battles while I have my corners 10 yards off the line of scrimmage playing soft zone.
But the last week doesn't really buy into that theory.
Okay.
You know, because he's at a quandary. Like, to D. Gunn's point, we can't stop the run in our 4-man front. So we have to play the 5-man front at least, at the very least, on first and second down. Okay? Now, what does that do? That puts you at a deficit on the back end because you got one less guy in coverage. Then what does that do also? That forces Jonathan Gannon to be a little more afraid than he normally would be in the 2-high or the 4-man line. And what is he going to do? He's going to play quarters coverage behind it. The safety is going to be off 7 to 10 yards. And Ryan Tannehill is savvy enough to look out there and see that and take the 5-yard out or the stop route. I'm telling you right now. So this is, to me, this is going to be the Eagles' toughest game of the season thus far. Not only from a strategic standpoint, but after racking up 363 yards rushing last week on 49 carries for 3 touchdowns, I can promise you, Mike Vrabel's, you know, his commentary to his team is not on us. Okay, so this is going to be a very physical game. Very tough, aggressive game, and the Eagles are going to have to answer the bell today, and they might have to do some things on both sides of the ball that they really don't truly like to do in order to win this football game.
There's one thing in particular on the offensive side I know we'll get into in a second here that the Eagles haven't done a whole lot of this year, but they have at least proven that they can play this version of football. They didn't do it so much last year, but this year, certainly. By the way, this Eagles team at 10-1, trying to be at 11-1 today. You can see them on New Year's Day, and here's how, thanks to one of our great sponsors over at Pond Hockey.
Hey, Philly, it's Tom Giordano from Pondley Hockey Giordano. Be sure to follow Pondley Hockey on Instagram for your opportunity to win free Eagles home game tickets for the rest of the season. You heard that right. We're giving away free tickets all season long. And guess what? We're going to give away tickets to the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So make sure you're following us. And as always, thanks for watching the Pondley Hockey postgame show. Go Birds.
Go Birds, indeed. All right, guys, talking about this defense, just one last thing. We've been talking about the secondary. We're talking about what Jonathan Gannon needs to do in this particular game. They are missing a key piece of this secondary, a guy that leads the NFL in interceptions right now. In C.D. Deuce, he has been put on IR officially now. Reed Blankenship will be getting the start at the safety position today. Gunner, in his first game, first real snaps, really, I should say,
right,
as the Eagles safety, came up with an interception on Aaron Rodgers. Not a bad way to start a safety career in the NFL. Had a couple of good hits in the game. Did get burned by Christian Watson, as we saw, but a lot of people get burned by Christian Watson, as it turns out.
That whole secondary got burned by Christian
Marcus
Watson.
Epps even took the right angle and still got beat. When it comes to what they need out of Reed Blankenship, will they get it today from him as a starting safety?
Well, we went into the game last week wondering the same thing, when he was inserted, and he went up against a Hall of Fame quarterback, future Hall of Fame quarterback, and really shocked a lot of people pleasantly by anticipating that throw from Rodgers and not just laying back and waiting for the tight end to catch the ball and then trying to make the tackle, but stepping up and making the interception. The Eagles have a lot of confidence in this young man in the back end. Obviously, he couldn't get a lot of playing time because of the guy in front of him who, oh, by the way, led the NFL in interceptions. there's a good comfort zone with him back there because of the other people they have around him. They still need to have Avonte Maddox back there, and hopefully Avante's coming back next week. But as we speak right now, they have been impressed with the way this kid has gone about his business, how he's handled his business, and he plays fearless.
Seth, what's a realistic expectation for Reed Blankenship today?
Oh, I expect for him to play the same way he played last week. You know, the interception wasn't impressive to me. You know what's impressive?
What's that?
See, most players in his position, being a rookie, being thrust into action, you know, unexpectedly, would have stayed behind the receiver and just ran up and made the tackle. To have the balls, to jump the route, are you kidding me? A rookie playing against Aaron Rodgers? Now, you know, if he makes a mistake there and that guy and Aaron Rodgers pumps and that guy turns up the field, it is 6 points. And that game could have had a whole different, you know, outcome. But to have the cojones to jump the route, to me, you know, that tells me a lot about his mindset. I don't think that, listen, he might not be as athletic as Gardner Johnson, but I get the sense that, you know, he's a playmaker. You know, I think that's just his mindset. And I watched him be really physical. I mean, he was coming downhill just laying the wood on some people last week. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen a picture of him on the sideline. He had a big old neck, big old Frankenstein head, and he just looked like a battering ram, like he's looking for something to hit. Yeah, you know, and he's smart. I mean, you don't make plays like he made last week, that interception, without being smart. Now, correcting the angles, you know, that's something that's fixable. You know, get a little more depth, go a little wider, you know, so that you can cut him off and get some help. That's fixable. But the intangibles that he brings to the table that we saw in a half of football or however long it was he played, you can't teach that stuff. That's innate.
Yeah, it was great. And I said earlier in the week with your co-host, Rob Ellis from Sports Take, when I was on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel talking about this game, one of the things that impressed me about that interception, he stayed low. Before he jumped the route, he stayed low to the ground as if to be hidden from Aaron Rodgers. Couldn't see him past the line of scrimmage. And then he jumped the route and made the play. And, yes, he absolutely brought the wood in that game. Look forward to seeing him do it again. Also, looking at this game, one of the things we talked about, and Seth, you alluded to this earlier, I think, if I'm reading your mind correctly, this offense is not used to airing the ball out. They can do it, but they have mostly had their success over the last 2 years in running the football. Well, gentlemen, they are facing a pass defense that is ranked 31st in the NFL, the Tennessee Titans are today. So will this be a game that we look at and go, they still got to run the football? And yes, I think you always got to set up the pass with the run, which is always great. But in this particular game, I won't be that surprised or that disappointed, especially if it's working, if the Eagles are exploiting a weak pass defense that they're facing today.
Hey, listen, I don't care if they only run the ball 15 times a day. And I know y'all want to take my temperature right now. The Tennessee Titans are ranked 3rd in the NFL. They give up 84.5 yards per game. I mean, you have to understand that's
on the ground.
Yeah. That's 20 yards. That's roughly 21 yards per quarter. Okay? So now you can come into this game banging your head against the wall, or you can come in doing the smart thing. They're giving up. They're ranked 31st in the NFL against the pass, giving up 266 yards per game, and we've been crying for the last 2 weeks. Ever since we can't throw the ball anymore. All we can do is run it. I'm tired of hearing it. Okay, because at the beginning of the year, you know, we were throwing the ball pretty darn good. Jalen Hurts is sitting on 2,666 yards and 17 passing touchdowns, but we can't throw the ball. We put that nonsense to rest today because against one of the worst teams against the pass, I expect Jalen to throw that ball about 35 to 40 times today, and I'm okay with it.
All right.
Well, you know, you can throw the ball, you can run the ball as much as you want. You can talk about how porous they are in the pass game. The bottom line is, and I'm still trying to figure this out, Tennessee has not given up more than 20 points in like their last 6 consecutive games. So they'll give you enough. Are they a Jonathan Gannon type defense? They'll give you stuff underneath, but you're not getting across the goal.
Well, you know, the one area I forgot to research, D-Gun, now that you bring that up, is the red zone and the plus side of the field. What are they doing in the red zone? They may be one of the best teams, you know, in the red zone, because they're not going to give up. I mean, they got one of the best, you know, free safeties in Bird in the league. So they're not going to give up a lot of deep balls. You're going to have to methodically work your way down the field. But what does that mean? That means that when you get in the red zone, now things get tighter, and maybe, just maybe, that's where they're making it happen, that they're not giving up a whole lot of yards, a whole lot of points, I should say. Maybe in the red zone.
All right. Now, when it comes to Jalen Hurts, a lot of people are talking about him. Patrick Mahomes, they're talking about Tua Tagovailoa as the guys that are going to be the MVP front runners right now, with Patrick Mahomes most likely in that case. Does Jalen Hurts, to maybe further solidify his argument as at least being in the MVP conversation, does he need an air-out game to try to prove to the rest of the league that he has got that arm? Because, I mean, we watched every snap, of course. Most people, of course, around the league, they watch every snap of especially a primetime game. But one of the most impressive things to me was that back shoulder throw he had to Quez Watkins in the end zone for the touchdown last week. He can do that on a regular basis. Last week, that's not what the game dictated. But it makes me feel a lot more comfortable that I know I have a quarterback that can make those types of throws. So does he need to have an off-the-charts type of throwing game in this particular game against the Titans, against this porous pass defense, to maybe solidify his argument a little bit further?
No. Continue to play the game that got you this far. He's got almost 600 yards rushing. He has more rushing touchdowns than he does passing touchdowns. Continue to do what got you to the dance this far. You go back a few years, a quarterback named Lamar Jackson won the league MVP, but he had over 1,000 yards. He had more of a balance. He was more in, people were more in awe of him as a runner than they were as a passer. And I'm not saying that's how Jalen Hurts is going to finish this season. But you don't go out of the norm, to get individual accolades. And if you talk to a Jalen Hurts, I don't even think he cares about individual accolades other than the team getting the W's, so to speak. If he continues to play his game as he has now, you look at how many rushing touchdowns he has as a quarterback compared to throwing touchdowns. He will be in that conversation until the end. As we all know, too, the MVP voting a lot of times is a popularity contest. Now, Patrick Mahomes has been down that road before, and that's all you hear across the nation right now, that Patrick Mahomes is the odds-on favorite. Well, he may be, but Jalen Hurts deserves to be in that conversation in the top 2 or 3 talked about.
All right, let's go to Lincoln Financial Field now, talk to our man, Eagles reporter, NFL insider for JAKIB Media in a brisk, I'm told, Lincoln Financial Field press box. Still got the cap on. What's the weather like right now in Philadelphia, John?
It's chilly, and I'm getting some Bob Groats early in the day. So, yeah, it's very chilly.
All right, one of the people that a lot of people are talking about today is obviously A.J. Brown going up against his former team. You were around him all week in the locker room. I know he said all the right things about facing his former team. It's just another game. Yeah, it means something, but I still got to perform. I still got to do my job. Ball security, feeling 100% healthy, that whole thing. When it comes to A.J. Brown, what are you expecting from him today?
I am expecting a big game for AJ. I think for a couple reasons, Mark. The obvious one, he wants to prove that, and he already said he's kind of won. He thinks the shift from Tennessee to Philadelphia, but he obviously wants to prove to Tennessee what type of player he was. And for the most part, by the way, I think Mike Vrabel wanted to keep him. I think that was a difficult decision for the Titans organization because they're a run-first team. So do you want to pay a receiver a $100 million contract in that type of atmosphere? So it was a very difficult decision for Tennessee. But by no means does anybody in Nashville think A.J. Brown can't play. Still, there's the human nature aspect of wanting to play well against your former team. And then you come back to A.J.'s had some issues with the ankle first, then he got sick. Very uncharacteristic, losing fumbles 2 consecutive weeks. So he just wants to get back on track, and say, hey, I'm one of the best receivers in this league again. And then as you guys were talking about, I heard, in theory, on paper, Tennessee's very good against the run, very poor against the pass. So from that standpoint, it makes some sense to try to get A.J. Brown going.
Hey, John, when Jordan Davis got hurt, there were no Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh in this locker room. Now that he's back and supposedly 15, 20 pounds lighter, and you have the addition of those beef eaters up front, what do you think his snap count will be? I said 18 to 20, 22 maybe, especially coming off an injury like that.
Yeah, I think you're right, D-Gun. A little bit. I think if you look before the injury, it was slowly increasing.
Yep.
But he has been out a month. I do think it was a pleasant surprise that he actually lost weight during the rehab, because you're always concerned with big guys in that type of situation. and there's no doubt that him keeping himself in shape was a really, really positive development. So from that standpoint, it's all positive. But as you mentioned, they didn't have Linval Joseph when he went down. And all of a sudden you have this big nose tackle who can play the position, play it well, and understands how to play it. He's a veteran. He's played for a long time. So it's kind of an embarrassment of riches in those odd man fronts. You can have Linval in there. You can rotate with Jordan Davis. I think it's going to be really big for the Eagles down the stretch of the season. But I do think it starts off slowly for Jordan Davis. And I do, if you're looking about Derrick Henry and the Titans and stopping the run, that's sort of what's built into the Eagles defense, right? They want to play light boxes, but they should play more five-man fronts against Tennessee than they typically do.
Hey, John, I know it's cold. You said it's chilly because, the first thing us bald-headed guys do is we put a cap on our head when it gets So the real interesting thing is the quandary that the Eagles find themselves in offensively today. They're probably ranked either 1 or 2 in rushing in the NFL after that 363-yard outburst last week, yet they're facing a team that is third against the run, giving up only 84.5 yards per game, and one of the worst teams versus the pass, ranked 31st in the NFL, giving up 266 yards through the air. Do we see a shift today in the mentality and the mindset of the play calling by Shane Steichen, or is it just business as usual?
I think it's business as usual in the fact that, I think we've seen this over really the past 2 years. Like when the Eagles get matched up against one of these teams that are good against the run on paper, whether it was New Orleans last year, was Washington earlier this year, now it's Tennessee. I think people forget they're good against a traditional running game. There doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good with the +1 of the quarterback. And if you want to take the Eagles out of the equation, look at teams against Chicago, who's not even a good football team. But they don't know what the heck to do to stop Justin Fields running the football when he's healthy. That +1 from the quarterback in the running game is really, really difficult to deal with. So I think when you say Tennessee's good against the run, you can say that. You can say convincingly against a traditional running team. The Eagles are not. They have that +1 of the quarterback, and that's why consistently they've been able to run against these great run defense teams over the past couple years. Now, while I say all that, I do think, they look at Tennessee's pass defense and say there's some opportunities to get the football down the field. I'm going to be interested because they haven't been the same passing offense since Dallas Goedert went down. Can that change today? It's going to be one of the more interesting things of this game in my mind.
If you're the Tennessee Titans, John, I'm sure you're looking at Reed Blankenship right now as somebody that you're at least going to attempt to exploit. It's quite the trade-off when you're talking about a guy leading the NFL with 6 interceptions in C.D. Deuce being placed on IR and not going to be playing in this game, of course. So do you see Reed Blankenship rising to the occasion for this challenge and actually being one of those guys that the Eagles can rely on as that next man-up mentality to give some very important snaps to this Eagles defense?
Yeah, I mean, this is so interesting because, Kevin Byard, who's the Philly kid on the Titans, 2-time All-Pro safety, went to Middle Tennessee State. And it's where Reed Blankenship also went to Middle Tennessee State. And they one of Kevin's nicknames is the mayor of Murfreesboro, which is where Middle Tennessee State is. And basically when he left, Reed came in, was 1 year in between, and was a 5-year starter. So, all of a sudden those Blue Raiders are just creating NFL safeties. Now, hopefully, Reed Blankenship becomes the type of player Kevin Byard has been. I don't know if you're going to go down that route, but he did look really prepared, which kind of surprised me when forced into action for CJ last week. And I think one of the reasons why, and I talked to him, he started for 5 years in college. And granted, it wasn't Alabama, it wasn't Georgia, it wasn't even Tennessee. But when you play that much football, I think it helps. And I think it's helped him. But if you're looking at the Eagles objectively, yeah, I mean, that's my biggest concern. And it's not only Reed Blankenship, it's also Josiah Scott. So when you say you got to commit extra bodies to defend against Derrick Henry in the run game, well, you got to commit extra bodies to help Josiah Scott and Reed Blankenship on the back end. So what do you want to do? It's sort of a give and take.
Hey, John, when you talk about a guy named Jeffrey Simmons, he reminds me a lot of a Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne down in Washington. He is one of the best in the business at his position. What do you do to neutralize him? What should the Eagles do to neutralize him? Do you go right at him, or do you isolate him and stay away from him at all possible cost?
Yeah, he reminds me of Fletcher when Fletcher was in his prime.
Yep.
That's the type of player he is. He's a little banged up. Hopefully that helps. But he's not the kind of guy, he's the kind of guy you game plan for. And you're not trying to take advantage of anything he does. You're trying to, Nick Sirianni joked earlier this year when he was talking about Micah Parsons, if you can't block him, read him, because the Eagles knew they couldn't block him. But that's an edge player. When you have somebody inside like Jeffrey Simmons, you just got to sort of do the best you can do. You got a game plan. This is one of the best defensive players in football for people who don't know. And he's going to be tough. He's the guy. He's the guy you got to deal with and you're game planning for.
John, I'd given anything to be in Tennessee this week when Mike Vrabel, addressed his team. After watching what the Eagles did and putting up 40 points last week, we know that team is built on old school principles. Do the Eagles get the sense, have you been able to gauge, do they get the sense that this potentially could be the toughest game that they play all year, just from a physical, aggressive, toughness standpoint? I think it is. I think it's going to be the most physical game they play.
Yeah, it's funny because the first two words everybody says about Mike Vrabel's team is tough and physical. Literally, everybody, first two words out of their mouth. The Eagles pride themselves on being more physical than most teams because it generally comes down to their offensive and defensive lines. This is one week where I'm not saying Tennessee's more physical, but they're as physical as the Eagles. So, yeah, that's how Mike Vrabel, A.J. Brown was talking about it. A.J., said Mike Vrabel's the kind of guy you can have 2 or 3 people at the bar and he'll convince you that he can beat 20 people up in a bar fight. That's the kind of guy he is. And that he wants his football team to be like that. Mm-hmm. And he's generally built them like that. This will be the 4th consecutive year they make the playoffs. They are a very, very tough and physical team. And, yeah, that'll be a big test for the Eagles because typically they win that category. By the way, Seth, Bob Garotz is being a pain in the butt next to me. He said Merrill still is talking about the outstanding job you did on the show. So Merrill Reese giving you a shout-out.
Tell him I said thanks, man.
John, before we let you go, in the brisk arena that is Lincoln Financial Field right now, what is your prediction for Titans-Eagles today?
I'm picking the Titans to win the game, not because I think they're a better team. I haven't picked the Eagles to lose a game all year. I picked them to not cover the spread, but I haven't picked them to lose a game all year. Obviously, I was wrong with Washington. This was the first one I looked at and said, well, this might be kind of a logical loss. It's hard to win 17 games. It's hard to go 16-1. I think there's a couple losses on the schedule. This is maybe a logical one, but I think it's going to be really close. It's going to come down to a field goal either way in the fourth quarter. But I picked the Titans. I'm sticking with the Titans.
No score right there?
Hey, John.
24-23. That close.
Hey, John, they still have the nerve to open the windows early in the morning, and so you can get so-called the ambiance. I should tell, hey, man, close those windows, man. What are you doing?
Now, yeah, the windows are closed, but I think it's the thinnest glass in the history of the world you got. So they're closed, but I don't know if you can tell they're closed.
Oh, my goodness. And, I don't think I like beanie cap John McMullen. He starts picking against the birds.
I think it makes him look more menacing.
There
John,
we go.
John, thanks so much. Appreciate you. Our NFL insider for JAKIB Media, John McMullen, joining us from Lincoln Financial Field. Thanks, John.
All right, thanks, guys.
Just throws a beanie on. All of a sudden, he picks against the Eagles. I won't stand for it. All right, we'll be back with more Eagles coverage here on the JAKIB Media pregame show from Ocean Casino Resort.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
Welcome to Pondley Hockey. We've helped over 100,000 injured and disabled workers obtain benefits, as well as some of the biggest settlements in the state. If you've been injured at work, give Pondley Hockey a call.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Don't wait until after Thanksgiving for leftovers. It's the new leftover sales event at Jeff D'Ambrosio Destination Downingtown. Jeff must get rid of hundreds of new 2022 vehicles on the lot. Rams, Grand Cherokees, Wranglers. Jeff has them all for less. Jeff has reduced prices and payments to the lowest they've been all year. And Jeff knocks down high interest rates. Save thousands, more than anywhere else. Plus, get more for any trade or lease return. You always win at Jeff's. Great selection, best price. Hurry in now. Jeff D'Ambrosio Destination Downingtown. Nobody treats you better. Black Friday sales event.
Welcome back to the JAKIB Media pregame show ahead of Eagles-Titans coming up in NFL action. We got Derek Gunn, and we have Eagles Hall of Famer Seth Joyner. I'm Marc Farzetta. One of the things we've talked about a lot is how this Eagles offense has to perform, how their defense has to perform also today against the Titans. But in crunch time, when it comes to red zone play, the Eagles have had a lot of success in the red zone, being able to convert 72.5% of the time for touchdowns when inside the 20. That's from Dave Spadaro of Eagles.com. But the perfect answer might lie in this Titans defense, Seth Joyner.
You know, this is going to be such an interesting game for so many reasons. You know, the Eagles are looking to jumpstart their passing game. You know, Titans are yielding, the 31st, defense, against the pass. The Eagles have just been running the ball roughshod the last couple of weeks, yet the Titans only giving up, they rank number 3 in the NFL against the run. And, we were talking earlier, and D. Gunn brought up the point that, they're only giving up, a minute amount of points per game. I think they're ranked in the top 5 in points per game. So I did go and I did the research, and I found out that the reason why is they rank 8th in the red zone. They only give up 2.2 yards per rush. They've only given up 3 rushing touchdowns. And as far as the pass is concerned, they've given up 13 passing touchdowns, which sounds like a lot, but we're rolling into week 13, so put that into perspective. They turned the ball over. They forced 8 turnovers in the red zone, 6 interceptions, and 8 sacks. It's just insane the way that they've played, and now we see why, D. Gunn, they haven't been yielding a lot of points. But again, the contrast of them being ranked 8th in the NFL in total red zone defense, and the Eagles being able, John, to convert 72% of their red zone opportunities just makes for an intriguing matchup all the way across the ball.
Basically, the field gets a whole lot shorter when you get inside that 20-yard line. And Mike Vrabel, as you just alluded to with the stats, is one of the best in the business when it comes to scheming inside that 20-yard zone. Okay, so now what does Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen do to counter that? Because as you just mentioned, the Eagles are number 1 in the NFL in red zone offense. They're number 8 in red zone defense. Something has to give in this game.
It certainly does. To give you the numbers here, for points scored, they are 26th. In the NFL, the Tennessee Titans are. When it comes to not allowing points, they are a top 8 team in the NFL. 18.6 points per game is what they surrender to opponents.
Mark, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, please.
Here's something that's quite impressive in today's offensive football game. The Tennessee Titans have not given up more than 22 points in any game this season except one. It was week 2 when Buffalo blew them out 41-7. Outside of that, they've been giving up 17, 19, 20. That's phenomenal. Don't go by what their record indicates. That's phenomenal in today's brand of football.
Well, that's why I'm saying the contrast across the board. I mean, you could just go down the list of team statistics defensively and offensively. This is going to be a game of will because you say, hey, they're only averaging giving up 18 points a game. Well, guess what? The Eagles are averaging 28 points a game on offense. Yeah. So something's got to give.
And the Eagles are home. Now, here's my thing, and this is one of the things I wanted to bring up with you guys because every week we try to pick apart different things on a 10-1 football team. And the record is the bottom line stat. It's the most important stat that's out there. They are 10-1. So whenever I'm looking for deficiencies in this team, and I always look for another team's strengths, I mean, I'm looking at Derrick Henry, and this is with all respect to Derrick Henry, realizing how great of a running back he is. Eagles stacked their defensive line. They happen to be getting Jordan Davis back to join those pretty big names and pretty big fellas on that defensive line. They should have a pretty good, not perfect, but pretty good answer for Derrick Henry. When you talk about a secondary, Reed Blankenship or not, CD Deuce or not, they still have the best corners right now when it comes to opponent quarterback rating throwing against them. So they have an answer right there if it comes to a hot Ryan Tannehill. When it comes to running the football or passing the football, you're talking about an MVP candidate right now in Jalen Hurts that seems to be able to do anything that he wants on the football field at this point. Is it just Eagles-colored glasses for me? Are they that good a football team where I'm not too concerned about a team like the Tennessee Titans because they have answers to what they do well? Or is this going to be a real run-for-your-money type of game tonight or this afternoon against the Titans?
Well, listen, there's a reason why they're getting ready to tee it up in a couple of hours over at the Link. The numbers always say one thing, but when you get out in the field, it's a prove-it situation. while the numbers and everything are in the Eagles' favor, the Eagles are going to have to go out and take this victory, because this is a football team that makes you earn every single thing that you get. There are going to be no gimmies, okay? We can't turn the ball over. We can't put their offense on a short field, and you can't have the special teams playing the way coverage-wise they've played the last couple of weeks either, because they're an opportunistic team, and they're a team that likes to hang around to the end, and hopefully, you know, something good happens in the end, and Derrick Henry rips one off, or they catch you on an 8-man front and get the safety leaning one way and, you know, hit you with a big pass the other way. But it's up to the Eagles to figure out, okay, how do we strategically navigate this defense well enough to be able to be balanced while we run the ball, but also take advantage of the fact that they're one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL, and how do we get a lead? Because once they get a lead, now that puts them in a situation where it changes the dynamic of what Tennessee can and what they can't do. And the later in the game it gets, with them having a lead, the more dangerous it's going to be, you know, for them, because Ryan Tannehill is going to have to throw the football.
The bottom line is, it doesn't matter how you get to the all-important W, just get there. And we sit here and we analyze shows, as does the case across the nation, radio, TV, and think about how many times the game goes against the grain of what we think is going to happen. And we've seen that consistently in 2022 across the National Football League. Every week there's 3 to 4 games where you sit back on Monday when you're looking back at the games and going, I didn't see that coming. You know, we didn't see the Eagles losing to Washington. You know, but look at how that game played itself out. 4 fumbles for the Eagles, you know, 4 turnovers to Washington's 2. You know, it has to be about consistency. And the Eagles have been consistent in doing one thing. Whatever you try to take away from us, we'll show you that you can't take it from us.
I'm glad you mentioned that Commanders game, because if there is one thing, after the rose-colored glasses that I just painted right there when it came to this matchup, if anybody can do what the Commanders did against the Eagles, it's this Tennessee Titans team. They do have the running game to do it. True, the Eagles are stacked on that defensive line, but they do have the running game to do that, and they have a far good enough quarterback, certainly one that I would place above Taylor Heinicke at this point, that he can complete enough passes on third down and convert on those third and short situations, which, by the way, has been against the Eagles' grain for what they have done for most of the season. So, Gunnar, that goes to what you've been saying about how it really doesn't matter about consistency. You can always have that one game where you mess it up. Usually it comes down to turnovers as being a deciding factor. Sure. It was the perfect storm against the Commanders. But when it comes to overall game plan and what their mission is going to be in this game, this is a team in the Tennessee Titans that can do exactly what the Commanders did, but only better against this Eagles team. So it's going to be, I think, whether or not that Commanders game really was a teaching moment for Jonathan Gannon and what this defense can do against a team that I think is going to do a lot of the same things that we saw against Washington.
Oh, it was a teaching moment across the board, because if it wasn't a teaching moment, then Howie Roseman doesn't go and pick up Sue and Joseph, okay? I mean, everybody realized that, you know, Houston, we have a problem. So, you know, they fix that problem. They get the bigger problem fixer back today, and you've had the experience of going through what you went through. That's why I always say, guys, you know, people get tired of hearing me talk about, you know, the things that you have to do. I just firmly believe that the way that you play over time is a precursor to what's to come down the road. You know, life is about habits. Everything that you do is about the habits that you form, the way you practice, the way that you prepare, the way your team looks each and every week in a game. Now, it's crazy because there's so much adjustment in a football game that has to go on. So a lot of people would say, well, you know, you can throw that theory out the window because, you know, you might be able to run the ball one week. You might have to throw it the next. You might not be able to stop the run one week. You might be able to stop it the next. But the truth of the matter is, when you look at from a consistency standpoint, how you play and how you finish week in and week out, it is a story. You know, it is a mental story, a data point that you can look at about how that team is going to look down the road. So, they won 10 games. But talk to me about how they won those 10 games, because those 10 games are going to be a precursor to telling you what it looks like down the road. Now, the one anomaly is the Washington game, you know. So now you faced that. You may have to face that again today. And if that's the case, Jonathan Gannon should have all the weaponry that he needs, not only from a personnel standpoint, but from an experience standpoint, because he's already had the ball ran down his throat once before.
All right, let's hope that's the case. Before we get to our predictions, there is one familiar face in the coaching staff as an advisor of the Tennessee Titans, a guy that was with Tennessee for a long time. He was here in Philadelphia after a, 5-year stint in Detroit, and that's Jim Schwartz. Gunnar, how much of Jim Schwartz that we know of is in that Tennessee defense?
Well, if he's on their staff, obviously he has a good amount of say-so in there. And let's face it, we didn't like Jim Schwartz's defense, the wide nine, when he was here. I don't see Tennessee playing a lot of this so-called wide nine. I see him just going tackle to tackle, landing man-to-man bow up. So in terms of what exactly he's giving them, it's hard to tell right now. But the bottom line is they're playing a physical style of football. They're playing a punch-in-your-mouth style of football. Sometimes the stats are misleading. We talk about how efficient they are in one aspect and deficient they are in another aspect. But then we start crunching the numbers, and you're like, wait a minute. You can talk about all the passing yards this defense is giving up. They're not giving up the points. That's the main reason why they're sitting here 7-4, because they don't score a lot of points, but they don't give you a lot of points, and gives him a chance to stay in the game more times than not.
Do you see any of Jim Schwartz in this defense, Seth, when looking at how the Tennessee Titans approach it?
No, listen, they run a completely different defense. They can be uber aggressive at times, and at times because of, how they rank passing-wise, I see them being really passive. So, maybe there is a sprinkle in there, but how they prepare and what their game plan is as far as this team is concerned, I think their biggest concern is going to be, how do you handle, the read option, the RPO stuff. Vrabel being a disciple of Bill Belichick, he'll come up with something. They've been at the drawing board trying to figure out, how do we nullify that one-man advantage that the offense has when the quarterback is running the football. It'll be up to the Eagles to be able to counter that. Now, where's the advantage? The advantage is when you're trying to run to the strong side. You got one more guy there than you really want to have to deal with. So most of the time, you'll see teams like to run that read option to the open side. Well, there's a myriad of different things that you can do to take care of it. Like if I was a defensive coordinator, I'd hit the quarterback and make him hand it off every single time. I wouldn't even give him the option to get to the run, to the pass option, part of the RPO. I'm gonna make him hand it off every darn time that he sticks it out. But this is going to be a chess match, and the team that can adjust the best. And in my opinion, it's going to be more of a chess match, on Shane Steichen's, side than anywhere else, because they're going to do some things defensively to be able to take away some of the things that the Eagles like to do. Offensively, the Tennessee Titans are who they are. They want to run the football. And if you load the box, they're going to throw it, plain and simple. There's not going to be anything sexy about what you see them do on offense today.
I'm curious to see how many times the Eagles run the trap run play, especially with Lane Johnson. If you go back to last week, they didn't run it a lot with Jordan Mailata.
Right.
They ran it almost exclusively with the right tackle pulling into the hole and kicking out the D tackles. Lane Johnson basically told us that was their most effective running play against Green Bay's defense.
Well, I think they run it that way because, those two guys on the right side are the more athletic two of the guard tackle combinations. Can you imagine Landon Dickerson, running out to the, going to his right, and Jordan Mailata coming back to his right? Now, Jordan Mailata's got the feet to do it, but he's banged up. You don't want a chance Dickerson running out there, and can you imagine if Landon Dickerson would have had to take on what Lane Johnson took on last week and be able to survive it? We may have lost him for the season. I mean, at least Lane had the wherewithal to be able to get his foot out of the dirt. Landon, he's one of those mauler guys. So, I don't, when you're playing against really fast defenses, and this Simmons kid, seems to be the real deal.
Right.
In my opinion, you try to out-physical him, you run right at him. Don't try to get, Don't try to get sneaky and sexy and all that kind of stuff with all this pulling stuff. Yeah, now, Tennessee Titans, they got to prepare for it because they had so much success with it last week. But you know, if I'm the offensive coordinator, they don't see that play all week. They won't see that play today.
All right, now before we get
now,
to
if they do see it, it's going to be straight play action. I'm not running the ball not one time. Okay, we're going to block back. As a matter of fact, we're going to bring the tight end in motion, and he's going to block the defensive end on the side where Lane is, and we're going to run that motion with the back here and go play action pass with Jalen Hurts rolling out to the side with a pass run option off of that same play. So, yeah, you might see it, but you're not going to see. I'm not running it. You know, Jalen Hurts ain't running, nor is Miles Sanders running that same play. We're just going to give you that look, but we're going to give you something totally different and have you confused.
Gotcha. All right, we're up against it. But before we get to our official game predictions, I want to ask about one player that's been getting a lot of attention, A.J. Brown taking on the Titans. Gunnar, are we looking at an 8-reception, 125-yard performance? Big game from him. Seth, I'll ask you the same question. What do you expect from A.J. Brown?
He wants to have a big game. I don't care how he's played this down all week long. There's still a little animosity between him and the Tennessee Titans there. He wants to have a big game. If I'm Tennessee, I'm going to make sure he doesn't get that big game. But because this offense is so diversified, I'm going to say he's going to have at least 7-8 catches in a 95 to 105-yard range.
95, 105.
Yeah.
Okay, Seth, what do you think?
I think the Eagles and A.J. Brown both need to be really, really careful here.
Ooh.
Because sometimes it's very easy for your emotions to get out of whack for him. And Nick Sirianni has shown that, you know, he's a loyalist, you know. And if this game is overly important to A.J. Brown, and he's stated as such, you know, Shane Steichen might push the envelope to try to do more than they need to do. I think they just need to run their offense. Just run your offense, run your game plan, and, hey, if he has a hell of a day, great. If he doesn't and somebody else is shine, if it's you know, Devontae Smith, if it's Quez Watkins, whoever it is, okay, let's focus in on that. Let's not get caught up with this whole, you know, A.J. Brown. Listen, dude, you got 100 million reasons, you know, to forget about Tennessee. Move on, and let's focus on what's important.
All right, when it comes to our predictions today, I'll go first. I'll take the first bullet here. When it comes to this game today, I don't see it as Beanie John McMullen had it, as that close a game. 1 point in favor of the Titans. No. I have this game being 27-13 in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles. This will not be the game that we look at and go, wow, they really ran the football well. This, I think, will be the Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown show. I know that's what a lot of the hype is saying going into this game. That's what I think the Eagles will be able to execute to the tune of 27-13 Eagles win. Derek Gunn.
Well, as explosive as the Eagles' offense is, if they score 27 points on this Tennessee defense, that's a monumental feat considering they're giving up 18.6 points a game. They haven't given up more than 20 points a game in the last 6. So I'm going to say the Eagles might exceed that 20-point plateau, but it won't be by much. Eagles 24, Tennessee 20.
All right, Seth.
I like both of these teams right there where they average. You know, it will be monumental because the Eagles will score 28 points on them. And I like for the Tennessee Titans to be right there at 18 points where they average all season long. Eagles win 28-18.
Look at that. All the more reason to think evil Beanie John McMullen is
Evil
wrong.
Beanie.
That's what we're going to refer to him from now on. For Seth Joyner, for Derek Gunn, I'm Marc Farzetta for the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, and those watching on 6abc.com as well. We got 3 Eagles wins to 1 for John. I'll be along with you guys and Devin Caney at halftime of the game, and then, of course, Mike Missinelli will be sitting here for the JAKIB Media Pond Lehocky post-game show. Go Birds! Enjoy the game, everyone.
Hi, everybody. My name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech, we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
My husband hadn't missed work in 15 years. His injury required months of rehabilitation, and unfortunately, the insurance company didn't see it that way. I was working 2 jobs, but it wasn't enough. One conversation with Pond Lehocky changed everything. We sat down, told him our story, and they guided us through the whole workers' compensation legal process.
Pond Lehocky. Tell us your story.
The faces you know. The team you trust. The Delaware Valley's leading news program, Action News.
Celebrating the life of your loved one is what we do at Life Celebrations by Givenish. When the matriarch of the Dalloway family died suddenly at 82 years old, Life Celebrations by Givenish stepped in.
They will make this the easiest thing that I know it's not easy, but they will make this as easy as possible.
Life Celebrations by Givenish, customizing services as unique as the individual.
I just know that my dad, who is in charge of everything, was not in charge of anything at that point when my mom passed. And again, just another shout out to this place for making it easy.
Turning tragedy into a celebration of life, no matter how hard, is what we do at Life Celebrations by Givenish. Life Celebrations by Givenish, customizing services as unique as the individual.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
Continue your communication sciences and disorders education at Salus University within the Doctor of Audiology or Masters of Science in Speech-Language Pathology programs. With state-of-the-art labs, on-campus clinics, and extensive externship opportunities, students position themselves to be at the top of the job market. Stand out in the audiology and speech-language pathology profession by visiting salus.edu.